Hi folks! This video is for those of you who asked if I can show how I created the blocks for this rail fence quilt. It's a really easy process and I think you're going to like it, so keep watching. To create this quilt top, I used one jelly roll and I added cream pattern tone-on-tone fabric in yardage to make the borders. I made my blocks from groups of 3 strips. So in order to organize this, I opened my jelly roll and I separated the jelly roll into light, medium, and dark piles. I continued doing this throughout the entire jelly roll. Once I had all the strips separated, I counted to make sure that I had an even amount of strips in each group and continued on by making piles of 3 with 1 strip from each group. To start assembling my blocks, I laid out each group of 3. I used medium, light, and then dark, but you can arrange them in any way that you prefer. The first thing I'm going to do is sew my top strip to my middle strip, and I'm going to sew the entire length going from left to right. With the first 2 strips sewn together, I gave them a good press towards the darker side to set the seams, and continued by attaching the bottom strip to make our group of 3. This time sewing from right to left in order to reduce warping when sewing a long strip. Now that I have my first group of 3 strips assembled, I gave them a good press, and you saw that I pressed both seams in opposite directions away from the center. We're going to cut our blocks. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim off the uneven selvage to get everything nice and straight. You want to measure your assembled group from top to bottom. In this case, mine measured 6¼ inches. So I'm going to be cutting all my squares at 6¼ inches. I continued on sewing, pressing, and cutting all my groups of 3 to create 6¼ inch squares. And I decided to set 1 square from each bundle aside to make my outside border. I cut those squares into 2½ inch strips. Once you start laying out your quilt, you're going to alternate your squares, placing them horizontally, then vertically, and repeating this throughout the entire quilt. Once I had all my squares ready, I separated them into 12 groups of similar squares. To assemble the quilt, I picked from alternate directions to avoid placing 2 like squares together as much as possible. I sewed the squares into 9 rows of 8 squares to create my quilt. I hope you will find this video helpful. Please like it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.